Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you so much for joining the Thomas Take Sports Podcast live right here Wednesday nights at 8. I told you all last week in the debut episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on the Buffalo Fan Base Network that there's no better sports show for you to watch on a Wednesday night than the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. What's happening, Bills Mafia? I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning into the show tonight. A ton to discuss when recapping the action that consisted of a Buffalo Bills beatdown of the Las Vegas Raiders as the Buffalo Bills blow out the Raiders, moving to 1-1 on the young season. First and foremost, let's go to the Bills by the numbers, as I like to do so, and discuss the main three stats leaders of Week 2's blowout win. Josh Allen, 31 of 27, 274 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. James Cook, one of the best days of his career. We'll be talking about him a lot on tonight's show, I'm sure of it. 17 carries, 123 yards, and of course, Gabe Davis, 6 catches, 92 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Those were the 3 main offensive category stat leaders. Defensively, this was one of the best Buffalo Bills games defensively that I've seen in quite some time, especially in the run defense department. The stat leader for the Las Vegas Raiders in the rushing department was Trey Tucker, a wide receiver that had a 34-yard run on a wide receiver jet sweep. Zaire White, 4 carries for 22 yards. Josh Jacobs, 9 carries minus 2 yards on the day. That was the stat line for Josh Jacobs. Devontae Adams, 6 catches for 84 yards. This was a great bounce back win by the Buffalo Bills, and we got the chance to see everything that we wanted to see from the Bills in this bounce back effort. What happened in this game is that the Buffalo Bills circled the wagons, and I should have put the Buffalo Bills circled the wagons ... again, because going from week 1, which was a complete collapse, I hate to say it, but it was a complete collapse. Week 1 in the rearview mirror, they move on from that, they go to week 2, and wow, what a difference a week makes between the week 1 action and the week 2 action that we saw from the Buffalo Bills. This was a dominant performance. This was a great offensive game plan by Ken Dorsey, and it was executed to perfection by James Cook, by Damian Harris, as well as Latavius Murray. This was the first time that I have seen the Bills maintain a run game and want to utilize a run game and want to stick to a run game to set up the passing game. As Josh Allen was efficient, he was measured, he was calculated, he was calm. He didn't try to do too much. He took what the defense gave him and then some. And that was the type of transitional performance that I wanted to see from Allen that I talked about last Wednesday coming off of this loss to the New York Jets, and we got it. So I'm really thankful. I can't state it enough. I'm extremely thankful that we got the chance to see what we saw from Josh Allen and company, of course. So what a great effort by the Bills coaching staff to put together a game plan to get the win. And a win is a win in this league. I've heard and read Bills Mafia fans, Bills Mafia, of course, state that they are not going to hang their hat too high on this win. And I don't understand that. A win is a win in the National Football League, especially when you had a performance that was as troublesome as what we saw from the Buffalo Bills in week 1, blowing that game against the Jets. We wanted to see the Bills kind of respond in a sense, and they did. They really, truly did. And I feel very confident in what I saw. And there's 3 players in particular that I love to refer to as the Ryan Thomas takeover players of the game. 3 players that get this honor each and every week on my show here, Wednesday nights at 8 on the Fan Base. So the first one is Josh Allen. And as I alluded to, Allen is back. If he was ever gone, he's back. That version of Josh Allen, the one that we saw against the Raiders on Sunday afternoon in Orchard Park, New York, maybe it was just the fact that the home feel, he just needed to get the juices flowing at home again prior to getting back out on the road, as the Bills will do so week 3 against the Washington Commanders. I'll talk about that. But Allen looked like Allen. What we saw week 1 against the Jets, that was not Josh Allen of these last 4 or 5 years. That was somebody else. That was rookie Josh Allen. I don't know who that Allen was. We haven't seen him in quite some time, and I hope we don't see him ever again, frankly. But I do know, based on the skills that Allen has, and based on the fact that he knows his skills just as much as anybody, that he's going to try to put his body on the line, put his skills on the line, let his skills do the talking to try to help the Bills get a victory. He always has. He always will. He's a live by the sword, die by the sword quarterback. We love him one moment for it, then the next moment we might not. But we loved him for this. I mean, this was a clinic of a game by Josh Allen, and I would go as far to say that 2 weeks ago against the Jets was his worst start since his rookie year. This start as just a pure quarterback was one of his best starts that he has had. And I like it because he's 31 for 37 in passing, and he had 3 carries for 7 yards on the day. We don't need to see Josh Allen running around anymore. We don't need to see him trying to be, Mike Vick or some of these other quarterbacks of the last 10 years that had mobility. We know that he's got that to his game. We're okay with that, but we want him to stay healthy. And the best way for Allen to stay healthy is to just deliver throws from the pocket, deliver throws in general. And he did that like a true quarterback last Sunday. And I really love just seeing him in terms of his poise, much more measured, much more calculated, and a much more true quarterback approach, that of a Peyton Manning or a pocket passer by the name of Tom Brady. That's what I saw Sunday from Josh Allen. So Josh Allen's number 1. Number 2, James Cook. And these aren't in any particular order for any reason. I just felt like, Allen was the first one that came to mind, Cook the second, Milano the third. James Cook had a career day Sunday, the best game of his Bills career. It's apparent, despite how successful the Bills running game has been in previous years, with certain packages, with certain players, even in limited fashion, it's apparent not only that, as well as the fact of who the Bills have on the roster currently, that without a shadow of a doubt, the most dangerous running back that this team has is James Cook. Damian Harris had a great day. Latavius Murray had a great day. But James Cook is different. And it's apparent that James Cook is not only more talented speed-wise, agility-wise, elusiveness. He has all those abilities and then some, due to the fact that he's such a young back in this league. And I was very encouraged by the fact that Ken Dorsey wanted to use him, endorsed him early this season as the feature back of this offense and as somebody that he believes in truly as a major piece of this offense, as do I. Amen. I want to see more of James Cook in this offense moving forward, and I think we will. And that's extremely exciting for this Bills team that hasn't had much of a run game these last few years. And I think they are going to embrace that more because they want more pressure off of Allen, not on Allen. And the best friend of a quarterback is a great running game. And Sunday, we got to see that. So that was great. And then last and certainly not least, for my money, the best weak side linebacker in the National Football League, Matt Milano. And if you don't believe me, check all the analytics websites, check the sources that you guys want to check to see how Matt Milano grades out as a weak side linebacker in the National Football League. He is no doubt about it, an all-pro and a true pro's pro. 2 interceptions on the young season in as many games. 1 interception in week 1 and 1 amazing interception where he went over the top of Josh Jacobs to pluck the ball from his grasp in week 2. It's a play that I'd never seen the likes of it before, and I don't know if we ever will again. That was a rare interception by a rare linebacker that is stepping it up simply as he needed to for this defense. And I want to talk about the defense for a brief moment. There's a few things that I have noticed just in these 2 weeks within regards to this defense. As I mentioned, the run defense was phenomenal. The run defense was great. What we got to see from the front four, I thought Ed Oliver played really well. Greg Rousseau has looked really good. And obviously Leonard Floyd has looked very good as well. And he came up a little bit limp on a play and was limping around for a little bit. I'm not sure where his health is at heading into week 3. I hope he can come back. Hope he can be healthy. But this defense has been interesting. And in terms of some of the positions decisions of who is playing and who is not playing, I'm really curious as to what is going on with Kaiir Elam. And I know that the Bills are extremely high on Christian Benford, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't be necessarily, but Kaiir Elam is a player to me that he's got to be out there. He's somebody that he makes a difference. When he's out there man-to-man in man-to-man coverage, he can be it. He can show that he has ability that made him a first-round talent and made him a first-round pick. And I question whether or not it's a bad look on Elam necessarily and his playing ability as to why he's not playing, but rather the fact that the Bills drafted a man-to-man linebacker while playing a zone coverage defense. That is a very tough concept to wrap my head around. And the fact that, yeah, this guy's inactive each week, Bills fans aren't happy about it. They shouldn't be happy about seeing a first-round pick inactive. But I think rather than it looking bad on the player, it should actually look bad on the pick itself as to why would the Bills pick this guy when they knew that he was not a zone coverage corner primarily. He was more of a man corner. And I think it does go back to the verbiage of it being a matchup-to-matchup league. It's a matchup-to-matchup league defensively, sometimes offensively, of course. And maybe they're just going with Benford early this season, just like they did last year, to then work in Kaiir Elam, and they feel like Benford's a better matchup right now for the wide receiver 2 that they're facing. And that's the only thing that I can think of. I'm not saying I'm right on that. I'm not saying that that's the right thought to even have. That's just the only way that I can justify the fact that Kaiir Elam is not playing in these games. I hope they put him back out there soon. I think that he is a real talent, and I loved what I saw from him as a cover corner from week probably 8 on last year. And I wondered why even last year. Why did it take so long for them to put him in there? I'm not sure. Something is afoot with that, and I think we're going to find out more on that in the near future. So with that being said, a 38-10 victory. The Bills move to 1-1 on the young season. The fact is, this has been a complete polar opposite from week 1 to week 2. I did not anticipate a blowout quite like that. I thought they'd win 31-14. That is, by definition, kind of a blowout, right? Doubling the point total practically by a couple more points than 14, of course, than 28 rather. 31-14. But 38-10, the Raiders offense, it felt like they were barely out on the field. It felt like the Bills offense was out in this game just wearing the Raiders down. It felt like the Bills were starting to find what their identity is for this season. And it's very exciting for me because I've been pounding the table each year for the Buffalo Bills to have some sort of a running game. And finally, I saw it. So I was ecstatic with the game. I loved it. It was one of my favorite games in recent memory. So, and that says a lot because, this team rarely loses. When they have, it's been heartbreaking. But when they win, they've been winning the same way. These chunk plays, a dominant passing offense, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Knox mixed in there. But this team has got some good running game ability. And I think James Cook is the head of that. Obviously, Harris complements him very well. And Latavius Murray has been a vet in this league for what feels like the last 10 years. This guy's been in the league for forever. It feels like he's been around a long, long time, and he has, but he's always been solid and reliable. And in those short down and distance situations, whether it be 3rd and 1 at the 45 or 3rd and 1 on the goal line, he's reliable. And I liked what I saw in terms of how they used the running backs. I liked what I saw in terms of how they use the wide receivers and tight ends as well. Dalton Kincaid is the real deal. There is no doubt about it. This guy gets open and he gets yards after the catch. Dawson Knox mixed in there. Gabe Davis had his coming out party of 2023 thus far with a big week 2. So moving on from week 2, I'd like to get to a preview of week 3 as the Bills take on the Washington Commanders. No longer the Redskins, no longer the football team. We know that. They might not even be the Commanders for that much longer. From everything I'm reading, it looks like that name might change, if not in 2024, it could in 2025. And the Commanders are off to a very interesting start this season. They're 2-0, and they're led by Sam Howell at quarterback, the second-year quarterback out of the 5th round of last year's draft. And it's kind of a shocker to me that the Commanders decided to take this approach where they move on from Taylor Heineke. Not necessarily a shock that they moved on from Carson Wentz, but the fact that they moved on from either one of those guys to then go with essentially he's playing as not a rookie, true rookie, but didn't play at all his rookie year hardly. Now playing in his sophomore NFL season, but first year starting. I've been impressed with what I've seen from Sam Howell thus far. I know that this Commanders team has a ton of talent on it offensively. You have scary Terry McLaurin. You have Jahan Dotson. You have Brian Robinson Jr., who miraculously came back from being shot in the leg last season to finishing the season as an active starting running back in the National Football League. And Antonio Gibson as well. I like him as a player. He just hasn't really seemed to find his footing these last few years with Washington. He could be somebody that goes to another team in the next year or so. But this is a talented offense. And I'm curious to see how Buffalo's defense matches up with them in coverage as well, shutting down this run game as they did so well against the Vegas Raiders, of course, this past Sunday. But to me, this matchup solely rests on the front 7 of the Washington Commanders and the Buffalo Bills offensive line. This front 7 with Washington is dynamic. They're versatile. They're interchangeable. They can move around, fly around in terms of what this defense is asked to do by their head coach, Ron Rivera. Chase Young, I do believe he's going to be healthy for this game. Chase Young, I think, is probably the most premier pass rusher that hasn't really been able to show it as much as we'd like, right? And I think that's an interesting thought because there's a lot of great pass rushers in this league, Micah Parsons being one of them that's burst onto the scene. But Chase Young could be right there with him if he could just stay healthy. And I really feel that this is something that I'm really curious to see. How does that match up? Spencer Brown last week was phenomenal against Max Crosby. The way the Bills ran away, essentially running plays to the left side rather than to the right side on Crosby was also fascinating. I think we're going to see more of that. That's something that Ken Dorsey has to dial up in this game plan, as well as the game plan that he had last week. Once again, moving forward, that's what I hope to see. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and go with a score prediction that I believe is a fair one, given that despite the fact that I believe the Bills are the much better team, I think Washington has some guys on that team that are far too underrated, that would probably be propped up more if they were playing for Dallas or Miami or Pittsburgh or just Washington. They have had a dark cloud over them for the last 5 to 10 years, if not 15 to 20. And I'm really optimistic just in terms of football, right? That this ownership change for Washington makes them a much more viable franchise. And I think it will. they're always one of those teams that I like the guys that they have. They just haven't seemed to been able to put it together. When they're at that moment where you feel like things are going right, something goes horribly wrong. Don't forget, a few years back when Washington had Alex Smith as their quarterback and he suffered that gruesome leg injury that almost took his leg and almost took his life. They were leading They were leading that NFC East division at that time. They were atop that division. And ever since then, it's been a whirlwind at that position. And it's the game's most important position, the quarterback position, where they haven't had a real reliable source of a player. And is Sam Howell that guy? Thus far, it looks like they're taking the approach of buying low on a quarterback and developing him rather than overspending on a free agent like they have in the past, rather than overdrafting on a quarterback just for him to go down and get hurt and not be what he once was in RG3. They're taking like the completely opposite approach to either one of those by taking a quarterback late and hoping that he actually pans out. And I understand that this is largely a Buffalo Bills podcast, and that's why you guys are tuning in. But you got to know the enemy. You got to know the opponent. And this is a sneaky good opponent, I feel, in the Commanders that I'm not going to call an upset by any stretch. I got the Bills winning this game 31-21. But I do think this game will be close. And I think this game poses matchup threats to the Bills defensively, Washington, Buffalo's offense, and vice versa. And I'm very much looking forward to this. I do believe the Bills can get back to 2-1, above 500 with this game. And mainly, I do believe that if the Bills continue to implement this strategy like they have against the Raiders, like we saw a little bit as well in the preseason, can make the Bills that much more dangerous than what they have been even in the last few years. And I want to definitely state that, okay, little bit sidebar here. I saw a lot of hate tweets. I saw a lot of criticism. I had my own fair share of criticism last week. There's no doubt about it. I was very critical of McDermott. I was critical of Allen from what I saw. I was shocked at how bad he looked week 1 against the Jets. But one win and one loss, or one loss is one loss, and then one win kind of washes that away a little bit, takes the bad taste out of our mouths, and we now expect to see a similar performance from week 2 moving into week 3 as the Bills take on the Commanders. I know I do. I know you do too. And that's what I expect. And I know that we have high expectations for this team. We should, because this team is great. There are elite players on this team. Josh Allen, game's most important position, as I just mentioned, at quarterback. Stephon Diggs, top 5 at the very worst on someone's list that I won't even give time to look at, top 10 receiver. I think he's top 5. Somebody might put him 7th or 8th, whatever. Top 5 in my opinion. And 2 tight ends that I do believe that strategy of 12 personnel can make this team that much more dangerous. There's so many wrinkles to this offense that are untapped that I think Ken Dorsey must tap into as this season wears on. And I think the majority of people that are tuning in tonight agree with me on that. I would hope they do. And if not, I don't know why they wouldn't, to be honest. I don't know why. Knowing that this team has so much talent on it, I highly anticipate that we'll see more of that talent as the season wears on. And this is a great matchup between the Bills and Washington. Bills going back on the road. I want to see them get a road win against a team that I think they should beat. I do think Buffalo's defense can get to Sam Howell, as they've been able to get to Jimmy Garoppolo. They've been able to get to Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson in terms of the 3 quarterbacks that they've played against so far. And I think this could be a game where they rattle Sam Howell early, and that could be it. That could be one of those games where our defense makes it happen. Sam Howell gets rattled, and then it's really smooth sailing from there. But if not, that pressure is essential to getting this victory, I think. And I've been very proud and happy of the development of this defense. Greg Rousseau has looked phenomenal. Ed Oliver, I think, is playing his best football. And Terrell Bernard, I like him. I think he has ability, especially in coverage, that Tremaine Edmonds sometimes lacked. And it'll be interesting to see how he continues to develop. I greatly appreciate y'all tuning into the show tonight. Week 2 recap. The Buffalo Bills blow out the Las Vegas Raiders, moving to 1-1 on the young season. I got the Bills winning 31-21 against the Washington Commanders. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'll be back next week recapping all the action from week 3 heading into week 4 on the Buffalo Fanbase Network. Wednesday nights at 8. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in. Last and certainly not least, go Bills.